All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Bodybuilding Breakdown. I am joined by none other than the host of Desktop Bodybuilding, Xavier Wills. Xavier, thanks a lot for coming on, man. How you doing?
Man, it's a pleasure. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I've had a few things lately. I've had I don't want to say it, but the virus,
Yeah, yeah,
everyone
yeah.
knows what we're talking about. But I had an ear infection, and then like the seasons are changing. So like I went for a walk yesterday, and I was like, why are my eyes so red? And I was just got hay fever. So I'm like, I'm falling apart, as we said before the show. But no, I'm good, man. I'm good overall.
The seasons actually change in Australia. What's it go from like hot to ridiculously hot to not that like?
Well, it depends where you live, man. So, like, if you're down in like Tasmania, where I was born, so that's actually a pretty cold place. So, we've got like a mountain that sort of overlooks a place called Hobart, and you go up there, and it's like most of the time in winter there's snow. So it's like it gets cold down there. But you're in Canada, aren't you?
Yeah, dude, you don't got to talk to me about snow. It's starting to change now.
Yeah.
We're getting the like summer was really really warm here this year. We had an awesome summer, but now the leaves are starting to change and the water's starting to get a little bit colder. So we are starting to get into that season now, and soon it'll be like minus 20 Celsius and 2 foot of snow and all the stuff that
Mm.
everybody hates around here.
Yeah, we get snow here, but it's like normally like inland on mountains. You know what I mean? And it's during winter. But apparently, we had a really one of the hottest summers in ages or something. So all these, ski resorts and stuff like suffered.
Ski resorts in Australia. See, I didn't even know, right?
Yeah,
I had no
it's
idea.
not no, it's not known for it. It's not like we've got New Zealand, which is not far from Australia. A lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
go over there to ski because it's it's colder and it's sort of known for its skiing. We're not known for it. We just have a couple of places you can go, which are all right.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Well, look, I didn't bring you on to talk about the friggin' weather. I'll tell you that right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, right.
Well, I got a couple of things that I want to ask you because like before we started recording here, I was saying I was actually subscribed to your channel when you were in your very early days of coming up, like when you were around, I think it was 3 or 4 thousand subscribers was when I was really watching you. And now you're
In
getting up. What
early.
are you? Yeah, the early days, right? And your channel has grown substantially since then. You do interviews with a lot of the top level bodybuilders out there. Your coverage is second to none when it comes to all the latest and greatest for competitions, especially the live streams. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later in this episode. But one of the things I wanted to ask you to start was tell me about the early days of your channel. What is it that really drove you to want to start a bodybuilding YouTube channel to begin with?
Well, initially, the reason I wanted to start, and thank you for the compliments and stuff as well, man. Like that's really nice. But originally to start, it was like I had another job and was working that, but I did have a guy sort of working for me on a casual basis with that job. And I said, hey, would you mind editing some videos that I do? And because I saw what Nick Strength and Power did, I saw what Louis Marco was doing, and I was like, Louis Marco's was very basic. It was like him just like recording his audio and just while screen recording, and that's it. There was no like real post production or anything like that. So I was like, I could do that, and I was sort of getting more back into bodybuilding after when you don't compete for a couple of years, you sort of don't follow it as like deeply, and I was sort of getting back into it, and I'm like, I could do this, like I could do this. I think I could do all right. And I'm like, and it's one of those things as well. You sort of have that self doubt because you don't know how you come across to people. I'm like, do I come across as like, I go and look at some of those first videos I did, and I thought it sounded fine at the time, but I was like yelling at the camera at the very start. I was like, what's up there? I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, I'm being enthusiastic, but I was really just like, you can't see yourself when you first start speaking or look at yourself on camera or whatever. You sort of sometimes you're hypercritical, then sometimes you just don't know how you come across. And after seeing enough of your own videos and stuff and getting enough comments over time, like it's important not to let all the negative comments in on YouTube, but at least some of them, if you can just take it on and go, maybe I do that and just like admit to it and then go and look at that part of a video or whatever. And you go, yeah, actually, yeah. I'm like yelling at the camera. I've got my head too far forward, or just like little things where you sort of pick up on your own body language. But I don't pay too much attention anymore to YouTube comments. But if it's someone being constructive, then you can sort of take it on board a bit easier. But um, yeah, I just sort of got into it that way. And like I sort of discussed with you before the show, like that first videos I was doing, it was getting in the hundreds of views, typically, even some of them under 100 views. And then I just did a video, and it was about Sean Roden guest posing. And obviously, rest in peace, Sean Roden, legend of sport. I got to meet him a couple of times as well. But sorry, where was I? Where was I going with that?
Well, I tell you what, let me tell you
Oh
something
yeah,
before you keep
I did.
going.
Sorry, I did
No,
did
no.
that video about him guest posing, and then it just huge views on that one, and I was like,
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
it's over 100,000, grew, and then every video after that was getting in the tens of thousands of views, which was crazy to me at the time, but it was awesome.
But it's funny because when I was starting my YouTube channel, a lot of people know this already, but I really just needed an outlet for my love of bodybuilding, which is what led me to really want to start the channel. But it's funny you say that because it's true. When I was looking at different channels out there, I was looking around and I was like, "Fuck, man, I could do this." And you know what? I could do this maybe even I don't want to say better, but I think I could do it different. I think I could add something that's a little bit of a different perspective, something that has a little bit more of a visual effect, and that's kind of my whole thing, right? So it's
Mm.
funny that you say that, like, oh fuck, I could do that. Like that's pretty much where I was too. So that's funny.
Yeah, it's funny how like I think a lot of people probably have that same sort of thing. Like you take like that's why it's like credit to these channels like Nick Strength and Power and Louis Marco, even what he did back
Oh
then.
yeah,
Because without that example of seeing someone do it, it's hard just to go original idea. I'm going to start putting this up online. Like maybe like I don't even think he would have had the ideas of necessarily making money from it, like early days. So it's it's pretty cool. Like, and that's why with the channel, like you said, like you think you could add your own spin to it. For me, I was like, what's going to be my point of difference? I was like, how am I going to differentiate myself? And it was like, okay, I'm going to put my face on there. Nick Strength and
yeah,
Power doesn't have his face on there. Louis Marco didn't have his face on there. So it was like, okay, that's going to be one point of difference. So create some sort of relatability and people. And then I thought as well, if it ever turned into another business venture, that people will know my face. I'll have that at least that bit of credibility and facial recognition if I wanted to do my own personal channel where I do, if I was still competing, training videos and stuff like that, or information based videos, or if you're getting sponsored by someone or have an Instagram or whatever, then people will be able to relate to who you are, because because early days it was just like no one knew my name at all. It was always that desktop guy. I heard that on like a few
yeah.
different podcasts. So, oh, yeah, I think that desktop guy said it, and I still get that as well because it's like, I don't expect people to know my name because my name on there is Desktop Bodybuilding. But yeah, it's just funny, like early days and how it just progresses. Like, and it's like I've seen, my gym, like a couple of people, like one guy was looking at me. I was like, why is this guy looking at me? And he goes, hey, you
Yeah.
look just like this guy on Desktop Bodybuilding called Xavier, and I'm like, I am him. And he's like, I was watching your lives over the weekend. I was like, wow, that's a trip. That's weird. But I'm sure like guys like Nick Strength and Power, and I mean, he doesn't have his face on there though, so maybe not a crazy amount. But some of his bigger YouTube channels, I'm sure like they get recognized a decent amount. Like Dave Plumbo says it, he gets recognized a fair bit. And even when he's out here in Australia, being with him, even away from the Arnold Classic, which he came out for, he got recognized a fair bit. Like it was like, oh, fair few people know Dave, especially in the gym as well. So
Yeah, and it's how you present yourself when you're actually going on camera as well, because I experimented with it a little bit. Part of the thing with me is that I just didn't really have the proper setup in order to do so, and I'm still working on this is a work in progress. I play a lot of music. If you haven't noticed it, it's something
yeah, I
that
can
I've done.
tell you got a few
It's
guitars.
it's something I've done since I was a
Cool.
kid. Yeah, and I've been one of the things we set up here is me and a few of my friends. We've started a band recently too, so we've been playing some music. But this is going to be the space where I ultimately have my desk set up and everything's going to be set so that I have to no longer record all my audio from my truck, which I still have to do and stuff like that because it's so echoey in here. It's a working space, but anyway, yeah, I tried myself to be on camera more, but I just don't have the space in order to do it effectively,
Yeah,
professionally, right? My channel, I can present things professionally without me being on there currently. So once I
yeah,
have a better setup, I suppose it doesn't really stop me when it comes to the podcast. So maybe I'm just limiting myself. That's a possibility. But that's one of the things with starting the podcast was one, it does get me that interaction with not just the fans, but also with guys like you and Mark's Max Muscle and Sanch. And I love talking about bodybuilding. That's why I started this channel to begin with. So it gives me that, but it also does allow me to put my face out there in less of a formal setting as compared to my channel, right? Or
Yeah.
my news updates, I'll say. So I've really come to enjoy it. And the more that I do it, the more I see potential for it to be better, and that's where I plan on going with some of this. Just like you, I mean, your videos have evolved over time. I remember when I used to watch you, you used to say, I'm trying to make my side hustle my main hustle, and that was your thing. I've heard you say it a number of times, right? And
Yeah.
you've done it to the point where you're at now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool. But it's still always one of those things, like we mentioned before the show as well. Like the 3 months I got demonetized for, and it was like something you just don't even know you're doing wrong. You know what I mean? Um, Things like that. So it's like I understand like channels wanting to make like well over what they even need, because there's always that risk it could always just go away. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's a scary thing about it. But I mean, I highly doubt any of us are going to lose our YouTube channels. I don't think we do or say anything that's too controversial. Like RX Muscle for a while has been more controversial than my channel or yours or whatever. And but they copped that 1 week ban where they couldn't upload videos, which that would scare me. Like I would be like, if I was Dave, I'd be,
Oh
so
yeah.
much more nervous about your channel, like after getting something like that. And I worry about it as well with being demonetized for that period of time. It's like, is that could that happen again? Like, cause I got no strikes, no warnings. It was just all of a sudden, So,
So was
yeah,
there a
it's always
point?
worry.
What was there a point? Was it whether it was through that 3 month period or otherwise? At any point in your channel, was there any point when you did feel that maybe I am going to have to go and do something else? Maybe I can't continue doing this for a living?
Yeah, I was doing a bit of coaching at the time. So I was like, well, I'm sure I could promote that enough to make up most of that portion of it. So I did do more coaching at the time and stuff. But yeah, it was just always in hope of like, okay, I don't want to take on a whole ton of clients as well. And then I get my channel back. And then I'm like, oh, like I'm sacrificing my channel, which it was a little bit like that when I got my channel monetized again. It was a little bit slower, but it yeah, I sort of balanced that, so
No, I
tough.
get you, but what I mean is, was there any point where you felt like, I don't know if this is going to sustain me anymore? Like, is there any point where you said I might have to quit and go back to, something else?
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's why I took
Yeah.
on the few more clients, because I'm like, I might
Oh,
have to go
okay,
full time
okay.
into this. Worst comes to worst, I go full time into it. Um, so yeah, I definitely don't want that to happen again. But I don't think it will. I'm like pretty compliant with the YouTube guidelines and all that sort of stuff now, which are reasonably stringent, but I think they have a bit of leeway. You know what I mean? Like, unless, if there's a very minor thing with it, like they'll sort of let you get away with a bit. But if you do it sort of too much, it's like, then they're going to slap you. So,
Absolutely. No, and the positivity that really comes from the information that you're presenting, and I do go out of my way to make sure that I'm presenting it in that way as well. It's just the way that I live my life too. It's just the way that I want to live my life, right? So
mm,
when you're promoting things more in that light, I think YouTube can have a little bit more tolerance for one, and getting away with things. I mean, YouTube is also a very big platform, so look, man, things are going to
mm,
slip through. Things slip through all the time. Sometimes they don't pick up on things until years down the road. I mean, look at Nick
mm.
Trigili, right? Something just came up when it came to something from years ago, so he says. So yeah, it's a big platform, but overall, yeah, you keep it positive. You keep it as positive as you can. Stay within the guidelines. I feel like we'll be all right.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be all good. But yeah, that's the crazy thing with Nick. Like he had that channel years ago, and I even thought to myself, I'm like, once you get banned from, I thought he got banned from YouTube. Once you get banned from YouTube, I'm like, can't you not have another account? And then I was just like, I don't care. So I was like, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm like, he's either gotten through that or he's been approved to have a channel again or something like that. But I guess that was the part of it. Is that the part that caught up with him or?
I think I don't, from what he said officially was that it was from a copyright strike that he received from years ago of using show footage, I believe it was. I don't want to misquote.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't want to misquote, but at the end of the day, I think the ultimate catalyst was the fact that the guy just brought a lot of negativity, you know, a lot of
mhm.
negativity. I do think that he did have some positive points to add to bodybuilding as a whole, but I think overall it just rubbed people the wrong way, and ultimately it was what led to his demise on YouTube. You know, it's not what the platform, especially in around that time, because YouTube was a lot less tolerable even for things like cursing when he was when he was not demonetized but taken down, right? YouTube was just, we're we're hammering down hard on these things, right? And it came back a little bit now where it's a little bit more tolerant, so you within, you know, certain things that they've implemented. So but I think that's ultimately what it was for him.
Yeah, and the thing with Nick is like, yeah, there was some videos, but he actually did, because I didn't watch them all because I was like, I'm trying to put positivity to my life sometimes, and they're not always positive
Yeah,
videos.
yeah.
But sometimes I'd have the thumbnail that would be like, you know, like wow, like this is like, oh, he's going to be running this person down, and then you watch the video, and it wasn't like that at all. And he's actually quite positive. So there was a bit of both, you know what I mean, throughout his channel. But he he ended up getting, I think, because he obviously got the reputation for breaking the news, or the, you know,
Yep.
spicy news and all that sort of stuff, that people were sending him those stories first, because they're like, oh, I want to trigger this video to go up, and people would get excited. So, and even still on IG, it still happens. But he actually, you know, he created that, and he actually got quite good at breaking sort of those news. Well, and they weren't always negative as well. Sometimes they were just legitimate news stories as well. But just if there are negative things, typically he would cover them. You know, and I hear information and things behind the scenes that I'm like, for me, I'm not going to cover it. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
Yeah.
there's
Oh
certain
yeah.
things that I hear, and I'm like, where's my moral compass? I'm like, okay, well, that's over here. And it has to be over here, and it's not. You know what I mean? So, but
Yeah, dude.
there has been some things I've covered, and I'm like, oh, how does that feel morally for me? You know, you're just like, and you know, it's hard to, if you've got a room full of people, it's easy to, you know, say, what do you think about this? And they can sort of, you talk it out, and it makes more sense in your head. But when it's just you doing it, and you don't ask anyone, and you're putting something out, it's like you're putting something up for however many people to potentially see it and think, you shouldn't have reported it on that. That's wrong. And then, you know, those comments can come in, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's a fine line. But when I think about it as well, I think about what reporters report on, and how they, what their narrative is on other sports. And they're really quite brutal. Like, you look at NBA and stuff like that, these are the best guys in the world. And they'll say, you know, is LeBron James a choker? Like, if we say that about a bodybuilder, that can be seen as pretty negative. You know what I mean? So I think there has to be a certain amount of controversy and all that sort of stuff. Because think about in the UFC and all these other ones, if there's two NBA teams that hate each other, you want to watch that game more. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
it creates more entertainment for the fans. But if you're creating that drama through your channel, saying this guy hates this guy, when that's not really the case, they might have said one comment or whatever. But if it's being put as that, it's going to get views. You know what I mean? Like, what was said between these guys, it's going to get views, it's going to get attention. So people are going to do it. There's stuff that I could have done on my channel, but I'm like, I know this would get views. Like, I know this would probably get 50,000 views. And I'm just like, no.
You won't do it. No, you won't do it.
Yeah.
Man, I've caught some stuff even in my time, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep that one personal. I am not putting that
Mm.
out there. So, and I think part of it is because, I mean, you mentioned things like basketball, right? I think bodybuilding is at a different point in its overall evolution, I guess you would say, as compared to those sports, in terms of its popularity on a global scale and its recognition on a global scale. Bodybuilding is already seen by, I would say, the general consensus for bodybuilding to the not casual fan, but someone that's not a fan of the sport at all, somebody that just looks at bodybuilding, they think that is not something for me. I cannot find anything that I enjoy about this whatsoever. But you can have a casual fan of like hockey or basketball and have a general understanding. Bodybuilding isn't like that. So when you paint it with
Mm,
that in that light, I find that it's just not at the point on a global scale when it comes to its popularity that you really want to paint it in that light. I feel a
mm.
responsibility almost to make sure that it stays as positive as possible because it is overwhelmingly a positive sport. You look at it on a global scale. It is inclusive of even culturally, it is very inclusive. In fact, those things are not even considered. And there's bodybuilders from all around the world. When it comes right down to it, it is simply the physique that you are assessing on stage. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, or anything else. None of that comes into play. And you look at things like UFC, where you do see snippets of those things coming into play. There is none of that in bodybuilding. And that's one of the things that I do enjoy about it. But overall, I just think that it's at the point in its evolution where it does need to have an emphasis on the positivity.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally agree with that as well. It's very different. And something like NBA, like I was saying before, that has such a large audience and there are so many people reporting on it that if one person, one reporter says this, then it makes all the other reporters much more comfortable to say that same thing. You know what I mean? So it's almost like a spitball, like where it sort of gets momentum, you know, and it's all these headlines and they're being pasted everywhere. So it's on a much smaller scale in bodybuilding. And normally the smaller scale things are more tight knit. It seems like the more it's like bodybuilding, where it's like you can't say things too big because too small, things get around. You know what I mean? Like you can then lose your reputation much quicker or something, I feel like. But yeah, and I totally agree as well. And bodybuilding's one of those things as well where the people that, well, I know people that have competed and they've had a bad experience. And when people have a bad experience with bodybuilding, it could be because of numerous things. They could have been dating someone in bodybuilding and they end up being an asshole or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
And then they get a real negative spin on bodybuilding and then they tell their friends. You know what I mean? So, and then, or whatever happens, you know what I mean? They compete and they run their body, they have a bad coach and they run their body into the ground incredibly bad and they have, you know, metabolic issues or something, whatever. And then they hate bodybuilding. But then you got
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other group of people that compete, like myself. I love bodybuilding from the get-go. And there's things that have been positive in my life from bodybuilding and negative as well. Like I pushed myself too hard into the ground one contest prep and created all these fatigue issues for myself and stuff for quite a while. That's a negative part of it. But when I've stopped training and stopped sort of the routine of it, you sort of miss that structure. And I always think like, if I didn't do bodybuilding, would I be able to lead a really structured life? And I feel like bodybuilding has sort of created that for me because when I fall out of that sort of training, regular eating routine too much, I lose that structure in my life. So yeah, I think there's a lot of positives to do with bodybuilding, and I think just, and for the most part as well, if you talk too much shit about too many guys, they're probably not going to like you. You know, like I say certain things about bodybuilders where I say, you know, like I said, like I thought Nathan beat Regan on every pose at that European Pro. Like when I did a breakdown side by side,
Yep.
I love Regan, but I still get a little bit like, ooh, like when I message him next time, like, hey. So I'm like,
No,
will he take that the wrong way? You just don't know.
100%, man. You know, it's the same thing. Like I'm a big fan of Tony O'Burton and I'm a big fan of Kareth Bajo. But when the New York Pro came around, right, everyone was saying, what if Kareth had stood next to Tonio, who would have been the ultimate champion of New York? And actually, I just finished an interview with Kareth, and Tonio is going to be on my
Oh,
channel
cool.
here soon. So that's the thing of trying to balance those things out of being a commentator of the sport, but also at the end of the day, a massive fan of the sport, right? So
Mm,
yeah, trying to navigate through some of those things can be interesting. It can be interesting, but you know, I find that some of it comes from, I guess, diversity of the channel overall and making sure that you're getting a good coverage of multiple divisions is one thing. Not necessarily when it comes to, like I said, you know, one bodybuilder versus another and making sure you can contact another by and making sure you're not saying too many things that may be misinterpreted even in your videos about bodybuilders. But one of the things that I did want to kind of, and look, I'm just going to pivot to this when it comes to your channel in particular, because one of the things that I really noticed from your channel in the last bit was the live stream coverage that you've been doing. Uniquely, your live streams are unlike what anybody else has been doing, especially this entire season. When the competitions happen, you go live. You show pictures of these competitions as they happen, basically in real time, and you have a pretty substantial interaction, I think, from fans when it comes to that. People show up when it comes to competitions to watch that coverage. In fact, I mean, it's not uncommon for me to be in that chat and for Max
Yeah.
Muscle to be in that. It's nothing for us to be talking about that stuff. Where is it that you really came up with the idea to start having those lives for competitions?
Well, there's people that do it in other sports. So I've seen it for other sports and seen what they've sort of done. Some people put like this stream of something like really small in the corner because it's not going to get picked up by YouTube's algorithms and stuff. But I don't want to do that where I'm showing the contest or anything like that, because they do have a live stream and people are paying for it. So I put the link, I say, get the live stream and watch along with me. And some people are watching the live stream that have paid for it and are watching along with me. So I'm like, hopefully I'm getting them, more sales as well. I'm getting people on my channel, win-win, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I just try to get the odd screen capture and chuck it up so people can just sort of see what's happening. We know it's going to be on Instagram 30 minutes later, probably in HD, and I'm showing stuff first, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to get it out there first and let people know what's happening at the contest and things like that, and then interacting with the people in the chat as well, because I enjoy that, And this weekend, we've got 2 contests. So I've actually done the timings on those, and they start at, I think it's about 2 a.m. my time.
Yep.
And that's for prejudging it's a prejudging in the finals for the show over in Italy. It's all like one show format. So I'm like, how long will that go for? Like 3 hours. And that actually runs into the start of a prejudging of the Legion. So it's like, there's a crossover there, but I'm like, okay, well, I might miss the first few divisions at the Legion, and hopefully then Classic and those divisions are sort of coming on, because they've got a ton of divisions there. So then I've got probably a few hours on that one. Then I'll be off for like 3 hours, but I want to do like a wrap up video as well, and then back on for the Legion finals at like, I don't know, 11 a.m. my time. So it's literally like almost like an all nighter. So I have to get like an early night, but yeah, it's just cool having the people in there, and you see that, it's cool to see the regulars come back and stuff, and people that are regularly in there and commenting and stuff, and like you're in there pretty regularly, which is cool to see. And I love it when like I've got like Superset Man, you, Max Muscle. I'm missing people out, but there's a bunch, and it's like it's cool to see like all you guys on there. It's like yeah, it's awesome.
Oh, you'll get guys like you'll see the Red Loop is one guy that's always in there. He's always in your chat, and he's always in my comment section too. Shout out to the Red Loop for sure. Yeah. But that's the thing. Awesome. Yeah, you get that interaction with the fans from what you do. And it is unique to bodybuilding for the coverage that you do when it comes to the live streams. And I want to commend you on that, because it is excellent coverage.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, that was the plan, to try to do it for every show this year, but we had a few shows where it just sort of like they didn't have a live stream, or like that European show, I was so sick. I tried to wake up, and I woke up for it, and I was like half an hour before it started, I'm like, I'm way too sick. I'm like, I won't be able to breathe. So I just straight back to sleep. I just couldn't do it. So,
and people noticed too, like me and me and Mark and Sanch, we've got a group chat, right? And we were actually like, where's Xavier? Like, has anyone talked to Xavier lately? Like, legit, that's what we were saying. Like, is Xavier okay? Like, so I was like, and that was when I was trying to message you about this too, right? Doing this, and I got the message back from you, and I went to the boys. I was like, yeah, he's okay. Like, yeah, okay. So that just goes back to the community. No, it's all good, right? That goes back to the community of bodybuilding. But aside from the live streams that you do, the other thing that you really started doing was the podcast, where you were getting some pretty big names on Bodybuilding University.
Yeah,
When does it?
that's something I want to start up again.
Yeah, yeah, because you did have some pretty interesting conversations with some of the bigger guys out there in the sport. What really made you want to start doing the podcast as well?
Well, I used to do podcasts like years and years ago. So I used to have RX Muscle Australia, so I franchised that,
Oh
and had
yes.
that for quite a few years. So I had multiple shows on that. So I had, um, I think I had one called Aussie Muscle Radio, which was like Australian and international sort of news, but it was, I mean, how many American fans are going to listen to one that's covering half Australian news? You know, like it's sort of, that's how I sort of thought of Desktop Bodybuilding, because I'm like, people want it. Like I still get Australians asking me, cover this show, cover this show. I'm like, if I do a video on that Australian show, it gets 1,000 views. My next video probably isn't going to do as well, because YouTube will knock you down. It's just like the way it is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I totally lost track. I said that, and then what were you
But
asking about?
well, see the podcast Bodybuilding University.
Oh, the
That's
podcast. Yeah,
something.
sorry.
But that's something that not only I understand you've done podcasting before, okay, but you started that basically with some of the bigger names that were in the sport to begin with. Was that really just because you gained such a reputation that you were able to go to guys and be like, hey, I'm looking at starting up this podcast, you think you want to come and be a part of it for first couple episodes or whatever kind of thing? Is that kind of how that went? Or
Yeah, well, the first one, I was like, obviously, like everyone saw what Fuad was doing on his channel, like, and I used to do something sort of similar. Like, I had a show with four guys, and we actually, it was almost the exact format that Fuad does, where it's like
okay.
people ask questions and people was asking about. We talked about anything, you know what I mean? Like sex stuff, all that sort of stuff. You know,
Yeah,
we,
yeah,
we
yeah.
over everything. So almost essentially the same thing. We just talked less bodybuilding because that was more of an off-topic show. So I did that and a whole bunch of other shows, and then I felt like, I'm like, I think I'm getting enough views to be able to reach out to pros. And because I've interviewed a bunch of pros as well, I was like, I think that they might want to do it, you know? So shout out to Brett Wilkin. He was the first one that signed up, and then Nathan Diasher, and also Martin Fitzwater. So they're like obviously the OGs. And then like since then, like Stanimal and a bunch of other guys
Yeah, yeah.
have been really regular and awesome on the show. So it's been cool, and been able to get some good names on there, and a few good names for interviews as well. And that's something I really want to focus on the next couple of weeks, is getting as many of the top Olympia competitors on the channel as possible. So, I try to get Nick Walker and those sorts of guys, and obviously Brett Wilkin and Nathan Diasher and all of them as well that are competing, and hopefully Regan. I've been trying to get Regan on for ages. He's actually in one of my live chats. I don't know if he was on that one. And everyone's like, it was quite funny because Regan was in the live chat commenting, and people were like,
That's
he's
not
fake.
Regan.
This is
Yeah,
That's not Regan.
yeah.
And then he DMs me. I'm like, Regan, DM me if it's you. And he'd already actually DM me. He's like, show him this. It's fucking me. It's quite funny. So
That's fucking
I showed
hilarious.
it, but then my green screen started to make my phone disappear. So I was holding it up, and then it was just like all like trippy out. I'm like, it says it. So that
It's
was pretty
actually
funny.
post a screenshot on your Instagram. Like everybody go check my Instagram. It actually was fucking Regan. Yeah.
Yeah. You always
No,
get
that's
nervous as
wicked.
well. Like if I've been doing lives and you've got like your chat open on Instagram, you're like, are there any messages here that like someone's talking shit about someone else or
Mm.
something like that? Like that's such a risk.
Yeah, things pop up on the screen. It's like, oh, I'm gonna take that one off. I've seen you have to do that a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It happens. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you've got the news updates that you do. You've got different programs on your channel, like you do one-on-one interviews, like you said. You've got the who wins, you've got the podcast. Do you ever feel like you're really stretching your content too thin sometimes, to the point where it's like, you know what, maybe I should just be concentrating on two or three things as opposed to more?
Yeah, it's something that crosses my mind. I've always had the intention of being able to put more hours into desktop bodybuilding, like, and then I'm like, then that facilitates me to allow me to do it. I've had a lot of stuff going on sort of in my life. So it's been sort of prohibitive, but I'm hoping that over the next however many months, it gets to that point where I'm able to have a bit of a clear run health wise and life wise and all that sort of stuff. So the plan is to have, the regular podcast every single week without missing, no matter what. to have, 5 bodybuilding news videos a week, to have, 3 who wins things a week or something like that. That's the plan. But obviously plans don't always work out perfectly, but hopefully, I'm able to get to that point in life where I have less time going elsewhere and I'm able to keep things super regular with all the parts. Because I look at, Max Muscle, he focuses on comparisons. He's started to do some other content now, but just focusing on those comparisons, he's done really well. Like, and his videos are more evergreen in terms of evergreen content, because someone can still want to go and watch Flex Wheeler from 93 versus Ronnie Coleman of 98. You know what I mean? Like, someone's still
Those
going to
videos
go
can
and watch
stand the
that years on.
they can stand the test of time. You can go back and watch. You can get lost in the thousands of videos that Mark has, because those comparisons will stand the test of time, unlike the news and things like that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the news is great because you get this spike of views. And I'm sure
Yes.
a lot of when he's irrelevant to contests that are around that time, they will get more views quickly. So if he says Andrew Jack wins a contest, Andrew Jack versus Samson Dowder from Yarn Classic, it's going to get views quickly. But if he does one Flex Wheeler from this year versus this guy from this year, it might not do as well at the start, but maybe overall it gets more views. So it's like, it's a push and a pull, because I find when I do videos that can be more evergreen, they typically don't do as well, because I think my audience is used to the news and they want to get what they're used to. So sometimes I do videos, I'm like, this will do great because it's like what this channel does, but I'm doing it better and slightly different. What I feel is, because I'm not going to try to do someone's content and do it worse. And I put it out and it gets 4,000 views. And I'm like, why? When my other videos I feel like aren't as good, take half the amount of time, and they might get 15 or something. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's annoying. So it's hard to motivate yourself to. I think you'd have to do enough of those videos for a consistent amount, a long enough time to figure out if that's worth it. Like I did those. I was doing my bodybuilding news live because I thought it's a bit easier, it's a bit quicker content. It's not quite as polished, but it's quicker to get out. But the views, for whatever reason, they changed where like your live videos don't come up on your main channel unless you put them on there yourself, like on the front page. And they have their own separate tab. And I didn't like that because they weren't showing up on a desk. Like when someone clicks on my videos, it doesn't come up with the lives. You have to go and find the live tab and click on it. So I felt like as soon as they started that, my views for the videos just went down. So I was like, experiment, been doing it long enough to figure it out. It did okay, but not as well as I wanted it to do. So
ultimately that's what it's going to come down to, is the channel has to continue to perform, and it was a very unique perspective on putting the news out there, and it was done very well. I know you say it wasn't as polished. It did have an amount of polish to it. I will say that, but no, ultimately, like I said, you really do have to do what's best for your channel, and what's best for your channel is sometimes what your audience has come to expect, and you're going to be subject to that.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's hard to know what direction to go. Like that was something completely different to what anyone was doing, because no one was doing live bodybuilding news almost daily. It was like, it was something completely different. So I was like, I want to try this. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'm still going to get enough views to make some money. So
yeah. No, it was cool. I understand. I understand how you were, doing it for a bit, but eventually, yeah, you really have to do what's best for your channel, right? One of the things that I did want to ask you about, though, was being in Australia yourself. It's actually much like myself, myself being in Eastern Canada here on the North Atlantic Ocean. I don't have the opportunity to go to these shows, like even on any kind of irregular basis. Even going to pro shows is pretty much non-existent for myself, and you're even further on that spectrum. Do you feel like you're kind of isolated from the bodybuilding world at times, when it comes to the IFBB and trying to make some of these connections on a global scale?
Yeah, it's obviously a challenge being on the complete opposite side of the world as well, because the time difference. So people, it's like Derek Lunsford always wants to do interviews at like I'm like, oh, dude, that's 2 a.m. my time. Like, that's rough.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if you really want me to, I can, but I really don't want to. But so that's sort of a little bit of a challenge. But I think the more you're seen and the less you bag people out, the easier it is to make connections. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not that bad. And I'm the sort of person that doesn't really, in general, mind getting up in the middle of the night. Like if I've made a commitment in my head, at least, even to I'm going to cover every show possible for the year, I'm going to wake up at whatever time it is. Like it's just 100% I'm going to do it. So that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I just think like with making those connections internationally, I think it's the good thing is now we've got such good technology, like how we're talking to each other now. It's like back in the day on Skype, it might be like delayed by X amount of time, and now
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah.
good. We've got it pretty good with all this now, so it makes it a lot easier. And also, I've been to pro shows before, so I've had media passes at like the Arnold Classic Australias, and for that when it was the Australian Pro, went to those when I was like 16 years old or so. I think 16, 17, I think maybe 17. I went to
Yeah.
my first Australian Pro where I don't know if the first one had, but I've seen guys like Vince Taylor, Kai Green, Sean Roden, William Bonac, Brandon Curry, Justin Compton, whole bunch of guys compete. Dexter Jackson.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I've seen them up close. I've sat back a little bit. I've seen them backstage, seen what they've looked like, and I feel like I've seen enough to realize, like, for me, William Bonac versus Sean Roden at the Arnold Classic Australia, I think it was, like sitting right near the front of that, which was really cool because he had Neil Hill and Chris Aceto screaming for the athletes, like
Yeah,
saying that
yeah.
they've got it. Like Neil was like, "You've got it, William. It's yours." And Chris is like, "Sean, sit on the legs, sit on the legs, or Sean."
Yeah, I
It
can hear
was
him.
cool. They were just yelling like so much, and they were both just behind me, so it was cool. But I was watching that, and I was like, "Okay, William Bonac." Like I look at the photos, I'd be like Sean Roden. In person, I
Yeah,
was like, "This is close." William Bonac had just bubbly, like super 3D looking muscle, which just doesn't convert the same way in photos or even video as much. Like, so every time I see William Bonac on stage, I'm like, give him a few extra percent, like, on video or photos, because he always looks a bit better in person. And
yeah,
like, same as
yeah,
Branch Warren. I didn't, because I used to be like, Branch Warren shouldn't place the size he places because he's got an ugly physique, I'd say it then. But you see him in person, and the conditioning, graininess, vascularity is overwhelming. Like it just
yeah.
he sticks out so much. I'm like, like sitting like up near the front. I was like, I get it. I get it. I understand why he places so high, because that is like so mind blowing in person. So
One of the goals that I have is to get to more pro shows, but I want to get it. I know that my time is going to be limited in order to get to some shows. So realistically, I want to shoot for the big ones. Luckily, the Olympia moving back to Florida, hopefully for me anyway, selfishly, I hope they continue with that because that's not that's not too far from me, relatively speaking. My father actually winters in Florida too, so I can kind of get myself down there and hang out there for a bit, go to the Olympia. The Arnold
that's
Classic,
cool.
Ohio, yeah, realistically is not that far from me as well. The Toronto Pro is one that I've got on my radar too. In the next bit with the channel as it continues to grow, that is one of the things that I do want to do is get to some of these bigger shows and just shows that are near me. Like I said, Toronto's not far. Vancouver's too far.
Yeah.
It's fucking other country. But
Yeah, that's on the other side, isn't it?
man, I used to live in BC, in northern BC, and it would be like from where I lived in the Northern Rockies, it would be an hour and a half flight to Vancouver, a 5.5 hour flight to Toronto, and then a 2.5 hour flight home when I would come home before I was doing diving to come and see Kristen and our daughter.
That
That's what I
sucks.
did, right? Yeah, it
Wow.
sucked, dude. Yeah, it sucked. But
Mm.
I was actually funny. I was 50 days into a night shift working on a drilling rig, and my father called me that morning, and he was like, "I'm ready to retire," and I was like, looked around, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm ready to come home. Fuck this." So,
So you were
so
away for
that's
50 days, like 50 days at a time.
It was nothing to be 6, 8 weeks away and then home for a week. And then I did that for a whole year. But I worked 50 days straight on a night shift on a drilling rig. And I was just like, and to be completely honest with you, like diving wise, I fought against trying to take over this company for years, like it just, everybody expected it of me, like I've been a diver since I was 11 years old. My father had this company forever. It's going to be your company someday. And I was like, fuck that. Like I'm doing something else, I'm me. But it just ended up coming down the pipe where I did take it over. But you know what? I rebranded that company and we do things now that honestly nobody would have ever thought. Like we've done diving and boating jobs in like the high regions of the Arctic. We've been places and
Wow.
done things. Oh dude, I'll have to send you some shit. We've done crazy things. So the company actually in a weird way did become my own thing. And
Yeah, I was going to say
being a
that.
yeah, it did, right? But being a
That's cool.
company owner, I'm also able to kind of balance doing this and doing diving in my own way. I mean, look at Justin Shire. He's got other companies, lots of other bodybuilders too, right?
We
It
business.
comes yeah, exactly, right?
And
Yeah.
gym.
Yeah. So and Nathan Diasha has a couple of gyms.
Yeah.
No different than what you were saying. If you got to get up at 2 in the morning in order to make it happen, if you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen. And that's what I do. I'll get up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And not I will. I do. I have for almost an entire year straight. I'm up at 5 o'clock. I've got everything that I need in order to go record my audio. I jump into my truck, whether it's -30 outside or +30. I record what I got to record because that's the best audio quality I can get right now. And I start putting out my videos. You got to be able to you have to be willing to do, whatever it takes. And that's what put me to the point that I'm at with my channel. And I can tell that's what put you to where you're at as well.
Mm. And the cool thing is like with kids as well, it's like you have that certain level of urgency. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and you're on a schedule. You know what I mean? Like you can't just go, oh, I'm just going to chill out for 7 hours today and 5 hours tomorrow because you don't have that option. So it's like it adds that like it really makes you think like I've got this gap of 2 hours in the morning to get
Yep.
this done. I've got this gap. Oh, when I get home from diving or whatever, I've got X amount of hours and like, and you're probably like, how can I get away with getting that in as well? You know what I mean? Because it's a certain
Yep.
level of like, you got a family. So it's like, is this financially viable? You know what I mean? So it's like, you've got this sort of level of urgency that you don't get necessarily if you don't have kids. So I love that. And it adds like a structure and it is obviously tiring. Like you said before, you've been super busy and doing everything you've had to be doing and then getting your content done and all that sort of stuff. And but at the same time, if you didn't have that, you would be like, what am I doing with my time? So it's sort of like a privilege to have that sort of pressure. And then eventually, if you made YouTube channel your main thing or your only thing or whatever, eventually it would be so much more satisfying that you really struggled or really hustled for it. You know what I mean? Like it's just so much more gratifying to have it. Because if someone just said, I can give you 50,000 subscribers, you'd be like, okay, well, the content starts now. Like that's awesome, but it would wear off pretty quick. But if you've earned them like, you know, however many a day for however long, it's so much better. So, hmm.
Dude, when I took the company over for diving, like my father was after spending the last 3 or 4 winters in Florida. Like he wasn't even here to do it, right? His wife retired. He didn't want to be doing this anymore. He wanted to retire, right? And dude, the company was in the hole. Like, and we got to the point where to where we're at now. And it's satisfying. And I do get the same thing out of YouTube. I'm at the point where I'm very comfortable with putting out content to a certain level, and I'm building off of that every time. Mr. Beast said it best, right? He said, if every video you do is just you do one extra thing that just makes your next video a little bit better. After you do 100 videos, then your videos are 100 times better, right? So that's
Exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been really working on that. My next thing is a new fucking camera. Right? So
Yeah.
but that's the thing, is you got to be willing to continuously improve as well. You have to be looking to continuously improve. And that's one of the things that as long as I can balance work with this right now and family, as long as I can do that, successfully, where everybody's still happy and healthy and all that fun stuff, and nothing is suffering, then I'll put in everything that I can to this to get to the level. I mean, who knows, man, to the level that you're at someday, right? I mean, that'd be
For
fantastic.
sure.
Well, if I'll get there, time will tell. Time will tell. But no, I'm certainly giving it everything I got. You coming on is something that definitely does help me with that, because it gives me some motivation to really keep going too, right? I mean, like I said, I was watching your channel, dude, back when you had a few thousand subscribers. I essentially did watch you build it up to where it's at now. The content, the evolution of the content as well, right? And I've got a lot of respect for that. So no, I really do appreciate you coming on, man. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Oh man, it's my pleasure. Like, I was going to ask you as well, like, because obviously YouTube is a mind game, like, because you do videos and it gives you 1 to 10 how it's doing for that same amount of time that your last video has been done. So when you do your last video, so say I've actually got a 1 out of 10 right now, which is great.
Yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
put out this
Yeah.
morning. But you put up, so if your video's been up for 2 hours, so people probably don't know this, your video's been up for 2 hours, it will
Yeah.
give you your last 10 videos and rank them how they were all doing after 2 hours. So if you put a video out and it's a 10 of 10, it means it's doing the worst out of your last 10 videos. So YouTube is such a mind game, because if you do a 9 and then you do a 10 and then you do a 6, you're ready to stop YouTubing, because you're like, what I'm doing is not working. And it's hard to have that sort of zoom out and be like, it's fine. My next one will probably be a 1. You know what I mean? I mean, if you keep getting 9s and 10s, you need to look at it and go, what am I doing wrong? Like, is my intro sucking? Is this sucking? Am I too long of an intro where I'm just talking about nothing? Is that the problem with
Yeah.
people clicking off my videos? And that's the reason why my thumbnail sucked. You got to figure it out. But it's important not to react off 2 videos. But because if you're doing 1 video a day, if you do 3 days in a row and your videos don't rank well, that's 3 full days to think about it. So it's like it can play in your mind. You're always wanting that next idea, and you're hoping that'll be a good one. That'll be a good video that comes out. Put it out. It's a 10 of 10. It sucks. Like, so I was wondering if you get that, like, get those mind games that get played with you based off of YouTube, 1 to 10.
Oh, my analytics will trip me out for sure. They
Mm.
will, especially when you have a video that you put on. It's like, man, this is good. Like, I've got something out where I've got Nick, I've got Derek, I've got Samson, and I just hit it. So I've got the latest updates before anybody else is even getting it out. And then you
Mm.
look and it's like 6 out of 10. What the fuck? Like, this should be nailed. And then you start going through it. Like, well, did I post it at the wrong time? Did I have the thumbnail out that should have been better or something like that?
Mm.
But it's funny because so yes, those things can most definitely trip me out. I'm sure, just like you, I've got the studio app on my phone, right? So I'll be refreshing it and
Yep.
refreshing it and refresh. Is it going up? Is it a 5 now? Is it a 4? Like, come on. It does get to me. Yeah.
It's the most addictive thing. Like, people think like posting a photo on social media and getting like 100 likes or whatever is fun. But this is almost like, because you're updating it. You're like, yeah, we're up into a 4 of 10. Let's go. Spiking
Yep.
up a bit per minute. I'm getting this many views. Because you look at how many views you're getting per minute, and it'll have the little, bar graphs. You can look over the last 48 hours and you can see the trend of, like, I put a video out here. Oh yeah, got some good momentum. It went for a while. Or if it peaked up and went down, it's like, no, it's really addictive to just keep looking at that. And because there is obviously a financial part of it as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You look at it and hey, the less that it's doing out of that 1 of 10, it can easily, you can easily look at it and say, well, I'm not making as much money. So
Yeah.
then that can start to play on you, especially when you throw money into the game, right? That'll change things. But the thing that gets me is, like, sometimes I'll have a video that'll start out the first couple hours, it'd be like 7 or 8 out of 10. I'll be like, what the fuck is going on? And then out of nowhere, it jumps to like 2 or 3, and I was like, I just got myself all out of gear for nothing. Like, it
Yeah.
it does happen. Yeah.
It depends what time you post it as well. Like, and sometimes it'll give you a little bit of encouragement. It's like great work. Your video's doing as usual, and most of
Yeah.
your viewers aren't online right now. I'm like, thanks, YouTube. I needed that, because it's a 6.
Yeah,
And then
exactly. Yeah.
sometimes, because obviously, like I'm on the opposite time zone to like East Coast America, so it's 10:30 a.m. here now.
Yeah.
So if I post a video now, it'll probably still do all right at the start. But if I post it in 5-6 hours, it'll go slow at the start almost always. And then when America starts waking up and Canada starts waking up and South America starts waking up, you notice it just starts trending up, So
Yeah.
there is one time period where it's like nighttime in Australia. Yeah, nighttime in Australia, morning in America, and middle of the day in Europe. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not a bad time to post. You know what I mean? So it's like that's all right. Like when America's waking up and stuff. So sometimes I don't mind posting just before that. So in like 6 hours my time, and then it's like you sort of get the people in Europe, then you get the people in America as they wait, just before they wake up. So they're waking up to your videos. So I find for me, they've actually done pretty well lately. So those ones in general. So I might keep doing those a bit more.
I think you should. No, I think you should.
Mm,
If it's working, you roll with it, That's one thing.
yeah.
It's just like anything else. If it's not working, you got to change it. But if it is, yeah, man, you got to roll with it.
The
It's things
only
you can
problem
build
with
off of.
that is you don't always get the newest news, because obviously if America is asleep, you might get Samson Dowder or one of those guys over in Europe posting up photos because it's perfect timing. It's for
Yeah,
America
that's
to be
right.
asleep and for me to get them. So it's always good to be first, but it's not good to be first at the sake of sacrificing your content. You know what I mean? So I feel
I
like I've sort
do.
of learnt that a bit. Yeah. Because like my last bodybuilding news video, there was nothing, like I wasn't first on everything in it, maybe one or two things, but the way I framed it and I put it up and I wasn't expecting much, and I got a 1 out of 10. So it's doing the best out of my last 10 videos. So I sort of took my time on it a little bit longer and just thought, how am I going to frame this? How am I going to do a thumbnail? How am I going to title it? And I put it up being like, if it does all right, it does all right. And it did really well. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. So it's like, you don't need to be first to necessarily get the views, but it is good to be first, especially if it's something really good, So,
And
yeah.
people are also showing up for your perspective specifically as well, right? And that's one of the things that I'm
Mm.
realizing is yes, you're putting out the latest and greatest news and stuff like that, but people are looking to show up to hear what I have to say about it. And it's important to keep that in mind, that it is what separates you from everyone's content, because everybody wants views. And when it comes right down to it, I find that with bodybuilding on YouTube that we are very supportive of one another. At the end of the day, people will jump from one video to the next, even if it is the same, even if the same videos and pictures, because they want that perspective. I know that I do it. I'll
Mm.
watch your coverage of God knows who, and then I'll easily jump over to see what Sanch has to say about it, right? Because it could be two different perspectives. It's interesting that way when it comes to bodybuilding in particular.
It's quite funny because I do the same thing as you,
Yeah.
but I always wonder, I'm like, is that just because we're at the level of fan that starts a YouTube channel about it? You know what I mean? I'm like, is
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and how many of my viewers are that fan? So I know I watch pretty much most of the channels or all the channels, especially like the pre-Olympia interviews. Like I'm like, I'll watch the same person being interviewed on MD as I do on RX or on
Yep.
whatever other channel. So I'm like, it's just because I want to hear as much as possible. And part of it now is it's work. Like if one of them says something outrageous in one of these interviews, or they're coached by someone else or whatever, part of it's work. So I'm like, cool,
Sure.
we get to
Yeah.
enjoy it plus it's work. So I'll put on an RX, and they normally group their interviews together at the Olympia. They do an awesome job of that. And then I just watch it for 50 something minutes, and it's like, cool, maybe I get one little bit of news out of it, maybe I don't, but at least I'm over what's happening, sort of what the athletes have to say. Because then when I do my lives, if Big Ramy says something about his prep, or if this person says something about their prep, I can say, he actually said in an interview of RX Muscle, blah, blah, blah. Because it gives me more ammo of stuff to say, because doing a live for 3 hours by yourself, you're relying on some comments coming in. But
Yeah.
I can talk, fortunately, and it's no real issue. And I used to be a massive introvert. So it's like doing these lives back in the day, I would have not been able to do them. I would have been shaking like profusely. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um yeah, it's something you're used to. But yeah, it gives you more of those little things, because sometimes I'm like, if it's a normal conversation or if I was sitting watching it with some friends, I would stop talking for a period of time. But if you leave dead air for 2 minutes, it's pretty crap in a live. If people are jumping on, they quickly click off. You know what I mean? If they jump on
Yeah.
a live and it's a photo and just me not saying anything for 30 seconds, they're like, no. But if you can capture someone and it's like, oh, he's interacting with people, or oh, he's showing this and talking about who's in the first call out or whatever, they're like, oh, interesting enough to stay on. And then they might enjoy it. They might subscribe, because they're the weekends I get the most subscribers. But then after the weekend, I feel like some people are just fair weather fans. They just want the coverage. So
Yeah.
they unsubscribe after the weekend. So like with the Olympia, it's like, man, you might get 3,000 subscribers that week. And then you have like minus 100 2 days later. It's like, what? So
Yeah, that's the other thing that gets me too. Every time you see someone unsubscribe, I'm like, oh, what am I doing wrong? It's like it's one
yeah.
person. You have 100 that week, and you have one or two that unsubscribe. So I've actually messaged like I remember I messaged Krishan at Goat Fitness, and I was like, dude, you ever have people like unsubscribe to your channel? Like I had like two or three that just kind of unsubscribed, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong or what it is. And he was like, not really. I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean, not really? I was like, you must like, and Krishan's a great dude. I love his channel, Go Fitness too, right? But no, you see it. Everybody ends up going through that. But at the end of the day, as long as you're having more that stick around, you're always going to have a few that, like you said, are casual about it, right? Well, I got the coverage now and
Yeah.
I'm gone later. Sometimes you even get those people back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And the thing is, as well, there's people that subscribe to you a year ago or whenever, however long ago. They might have stopped bodybuilding. They might not
Yeah.
have that interest anymore. There's like, oh, I keep getting fucking notifications from this guy, because we
Yeah.
do post a lot. Because some YouTube channels, and many post once a week or whatever. A lot of the bodybuilding channels post a lot. So it's like, if you're getting constant notifications and they're like, I don't even follow this guy's stuff anymore, I'm going to unsubscribe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast. It's like,
No, it
yeah,
is.
it's just how it works.
No, you're right. But look, you've got a really, really interesting perspective on some of this stuff because of where you started and to the level that your channel is at now. And I feel like it's not often that you really get to have a conversation. I mean, you have lots of conversations with a lot of the top guys out there in the sport. So not often do I think you would get to be able to have a conversation about things like YouTube and being a YouTuber. And I've heard you say in the past that you're not a big fan of that term YouTuber as well. But at the end of the day, it
Oh
is,
yeah.
kind of the thing, right? But more so, you are a bodybuilding commentator. So to be able to talk about some of this stuff with you, I think is a different perspective for what the fans can really see for what you put into the channel, and not just what you put into it, but really what you get out of it as well, right? Personally,
Mm.
professionally. So I think this was, I really, really enjoyed having this conversation with you, man. This was really, really insightful just for me as a fan of your channel too.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And it's cool to talk about it as well with other people on YouTube. Like, I feel like maybe you, me, and like some of the other guys should do like a once a month thing or something where we discuss like what's been working for us or what hasn't been working for us, and we can sort of try to like take over YouTube together. But because it is good to talk about, and it reaffirms certain things that you might have watched before, and it makes you think about it a bit more. And um probably just keeps you more honest as well and more onto it, and like, okay, I really should prioritize this sort of content, and we can give each other advice on each channels or something. We should definitely do that, because I think that would, yeah, definitely pay off for everyone. So yeah, we should set something like that up.
I think people would be into it too, right? I think people would be
Mm.
into it. So no, we can definitely set up and even bounce around from one channel. Like we'll all come on yours, come on mine. We can go on like with
I mean,
whoever.
even just even privately as well, like privately
Oh,
just discussing game planning for YouTube, like, but yeah, other podcasts as well, man. Yeah,
no,
I'm
you're right
keen.
though. We can, yeah, most definitely. Well, we'll start setting something like that up for sure. And the fans will get a little bit of the snippets as we do things like this. I'd love to do another couple of chats like this with you. Like I said, I can come on yours, you can come on mine. We can bounce back and forth. The Olympia is going to be busy, but we'll look at some content after, be able to get some more things out. And
Sure, man.
this really was a great conversation. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It was cool. And I said I was looking forward to talking to you, because you know, when you even on online, you talk to people and it's like, you sort of know that you're of a similar, like either moral standard, and just you have that sort of, you can bounce off people. And it's like,
Yeah.
I knew that with you. And it's like, we've sent voice messages to each other. So it's sort of like talking to each other, but it's, yeah, you get an idea of how someone's like, and it's like, oh, this will be a cool chat. You know what I mean? You're easy to talk to and all that sort of stuff. And you have a good channel. And dude, you've got like, cause I don't recognize certain things on myself. So I know my voice probably isn't the best for YouTube, but you've got a really good like commentator voice for YouTube. Like it sounds like, I don't know if you realize that, because you got Mark's Max Muscle who sort of has it as well, and like Louis Marco,
Yeah.
his voice had its own sort of thing. I'd say Nick Strength and Power probably has the worst one, but his content was so consistent from the start because he's got that.
Yeah.
Hey
Yeah.
guys, Nick Strength and Power here. Like it's like really like, and people make comments that it's monotone, but it's yeah, you have like a real, yeah, like commentator voice. So it's like it's good for YouTube. So even if you do just have your voice on your channel and you don't put your face on the news ones or whatever, there's heaps of chat. Like I've watched a lot of like F1 content lately and stuff like that, and heaps of other channels. And most of them don't have their face on there. And most of them are just images moving or videos or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, your voice will work on this platform, and, you know, obviously work on podcast platforms and stuff as well. But it's not very motivating to do podcasts because you have to get outside sponsors on to do all that sort of stuff. But yeah, man, just keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, like you said, if you can just, like Mr. B said, if you just add one little thing or improve one little thing for each video, after 100 videos, your video is looking pretty good, and people notice with the consistency, they notice the improvement. You know, like when I had a background before, this was like just heaps of the little logos everywhere. And someone said to me, like this lady that followed the channel, one of the few, because it's like under 3%. She said, she's like, can you change your background? She's like, it looks super crap. It looks like clouds. And I'm like, oh, it looks all right. And I looked at it, I was like, it does look shit. Like it sucks. And then I ended up, you know, finding templates to do this sort of stuff and
Yep.
did it. And I'm like, how much better does that look than what I had before, you know? Like, and then then I sort of get jealous of some people, and I'm like, they've got all their like backlights in their room. It's like it's just their bedroom, but it's all lit up like with these lights on the wall. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But yeah, I'm happy with this, man. It's easy, it's cheap. It's like there's no excuse like for me. So
No,
especially because I
man.
had a green screen.
You've had people like, I remember you were on, I think it was RX. I can't remember who it was, but someone was like, man, that's like who made you that LED light? And you were like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's real.
Yeah. I'll get to a
There it
point where I
is.
don't got dogs and my boy running through the background and stuff like that. And actually, you know
Yeah.
what? He can show up whenever he wants. Me and him do. We're working on it now. I got the designs and stuff like that for a gaming channel because dude, he
Oh,
loves
cool.
dude, he loves YouTube. Like he's into it. We got a few videos up, but working on rolling that out too as he gets a little bit older because he's a riot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he's a
awesome,
riot,
man.
man. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, as long
No,
as you have the
it's
good sound quality on there and stuff. Like my kids, they watch like these people would have toys, and they literally just like, and they'll just put in literally like a transparent fire thing which you can just download
oh,
online very easily, and it's just going like that. And these videos will have 50 something million views, and it's just been playing with toys.
I
And
know,
my son's
man.
like,
I
"Oh,
know.
that's cool. You know that toy is cool." And I'm like, you just watch these people, these men, men are doing it, and they're just like, I'm like, how much money
Oh,
do these videos make? But YouTube brought in that thing as well where you can't make as much off children advertising or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
I don't know exactly how it works. So my videos aren't for kids anyway. So
Well, people are finding their way around that though. I mean, I've seen channels like, look at you ever hear of Lanky Box? Yeah, gaming channel.
mm,
Yeah,
I think I've
dude,
heard of it. I'm not familiar though.
that'll tell you how big YouTube is. It's like 20 million subscribers or something fucking crazy like that. You can't make that like off YouTube like you used to, even though they're getting millions of views per video. But they'll always throw little snippets. Then like, buy our stuff at Walmart, right? You'll find it on Amazon or whatever. So
Yeah.
they're finding their way through, and it's just like quick in, quick out, and then they keep going with their video, and all they're doing is playing video games, man. And that's just like with bodybuilding. I was like, well, I mean, my boy could do that, like.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if they do
it's
like Amazon affiliate or something like that and stuff, like some of the channels with some podcasts, with some things. Cause I know Amazon affiliates, and there's certain affiliate things you can do. Like some people do it with like nutrition advice channels, and I say, oh, you
yep.
know, you get creatine and stuff, like links in description. So that's always a way, maybe, that I don't know if that's a thing you can do with YouTube with children type videos. I don't know, but I'm
Um,
sure you look into all of it.
I will. Yeah, I will be for sure. There's so much to do when it comes to starting another channel, and as he gets older, he'll be able to help me with more of that as well. So this is definitely the majority of my time spent on my bodybuilding channel, but we do get a few videos out when it comes to gaming. And as time goes on, I mean, he's only 6. So, I mean, we still got time. Not that there's any time to waste, but there is still more time to do that. And I want to continue to grow this bodybuilding channel at the same time. So this is one of the things.
His channel might take over, and you will be like his employee. Like,
I'd be fine with that.
like,
I'd be fine with that, man.
yeah, he's
I'd be
getting
good with that.
like 50 million views a month or something, and you're just like, damn. I thought
I
my
look,
500,000 was really good when
yeah,
you're at that stage. It's like,
yeah. I spent a few
it's funny.
years
I've
on
seen
this,
that.
and he just jumps on. It's like instantly, like, yeah, no, it's all just a formula on YouTube, right? And it's just a matter of finding the formula, and
Yeah.
you do have to put out good content. There's no question, right?
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you're actually teaching your son this as well. Like, if you teach him along the way slowly with
Yeah,
it, it's like to have those skills, like video editing skills, Photoshop skills, and just knowing, like, even it's almost like advertising as well in sales, because with YouTube titles and stuff like that, you can teach him why it says, this in capitals, or you say these words, like these keywords with the title. I'm using them in the description as well. This is how because it's a strategic thing. It's like how to impact people, how to grab people. Like, I think it's such a cool skill to teach a kid, because I think that's more valuable than you probably put how many classes together that they're going to learn in school when they're a bit older. It's like, how much are they getting out of some of those? I know for a fact I did not get much out of some classes. I'm like, I don't care about this. Like, it's just like, you don't care. But if he's interested in it, he's going to learn more about it too. So it's I think that's really, really cool.
Oh, we even started as basic as what games do we want to choose, right? What games are people watching right now out there, right? Your Minecraft, your Roblox,
Exactly.
your whatever. So what games do we want to play, bud? Well, we could play this
Mm.
game, and we do, and whatever games it is that he might be into, then we'll put that out there because he has to have his fun as well. He's fucking 6 years old, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
some of the bigger games he does enjoy as well. So again, it's just that balance, that formula, and he is interested. So as things continue to grow, we'll see how he does with that. And it's not uncommon for him to be down into the gym with me either. So that's another cool thing.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Like,
I got a video on
mm.
my Instagram. I was doing push-ups with him on my back. Actually, it was him, and we've got a 7.5 pound mini dash hound. So he took the two. He sat on my back while I was doing push-ups. It was pretty cool.
I'm trying to remember if I've seen that. How long ago was it?
It was I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. Now, something like that. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember if I saw it. I have no idea. I was probably sick at the time with
yeah.
with the
It's on
virus.
there. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
I'll
on
check it
there. It's
out.
on there for sure. But
That's so
listen,
cool.
I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it here,
Yeah,
Xavier, I really appreciate you coming on. If anybody out there is living under a fucking rock, I'm gonna put a link to your channel in the description below, Desktop Bodybuilding, and
thank you,
I'd
bro.
love to do this again sometime, man.
Yeah, and if anyone's watching this that knows me, because you know how things come up, like people, like if someone's not subscribed to you and they subscribe to me,
Yeah,
then it will come up in their recommended thing. So if anyone's just watching this and they haven't subscribed to your channel too, if they're a subscriber of mine, make sure you subscribe to this guy too, because he puts out really good stuff. Trying to figure out which way, pointing that way, I think.
whichever way it'll be. Yeah.
Yeah. Because some you might be on the same side on your screen. I don't know. But yeah, obviously, I would encourage anyone to subscribe to your channel too, man, because you put out really good stuff. I don't always have the time to watch everyone's stuff, because most of the videos I watch now, I'm trying to find news by watching other
Yeah.
interviews and stuff like that. So it leaves me less time to watch the content that I just sit down and regularly watch and enjoy, So, but I do catch your stuff, obviously, but I don't catch every single one, because partly I just go on the recommended page, and that's what the stuff I need to watch. You know what I mean? Not just who you subscribe to individually. I just come up, like, if one of yours comes up, click it, So
No, I hear you there. I'm pretty much in the same boat, right? Try to get
yeah,
everybody's in because, like I said, I do enjoy everybody's perspective, but I do get in the majority of pretty much everybody that I follow there. So yeah,
yeah.
it's a balance for sure. But
And,
listen,
and thanks again, man, as well, for having me.
Oh no, listen, thanks a lot for coming on. We'll do this again.
It's
We'll get
cool.
through the Olympia time, and stay tuned. We'll get another one in.
Yeah, man, for sure.
All right. Well, I'm going to call it there for the latest episode of the Bodybuilding Breakdown. We'll catch you guys next time.